My name is Wendy Malem. I'm the director of the Centre for Fashion Enterprise. I'm just going to quickly run down what it is that we do, and then I'll give you just a few bullet points of what we've actually achieved. We're funded by the LDA, London Development Agency, and the London College of Fashion. So the funding, it's been going for 5 years, and the funding that came in for the first 3 years was £2 million. Now that funding has gone down, and we're in a position where we're moving at the moment from being publicly to being privately funded. What we aim to do is support pioneering fashion design businesses, and we have a business platform, and it nurtures into proper sustainable businesses this emerging fashion design talent. We're recognised as a provider of support for these businesses, and we're beginning to get enough credibility from manufacturers to work with us, from investors to work with us. We're getting consultancies coming in. So we can see that actually the recognition that we need as an organisation is beginning to come in, and it's taken all of this time to actually learn the process, learn what it's like working with creative people and teaming creative people with the industries that we need to support those talents. So brokering relationships is a big part of what we do, and setting up networks of experiences. It might be new designers with existing designers, it might be bringing in entrepreneurs, it might be working with banks, it might be knowledge sharing, and it might actually be bringing in practical help. The fact that London College of Fashion is one of the consortium partners means that if we have a designer who is fantastic but actually isn't very technical, we can actually call in a technical expert, a tailor, to actually make sure everything is production ready before it leaves our incubation studios. The third thing we really feel passionately about is making a contribution to British fashion and the London Fashion Week and the whole designer sector. We need to add professionalism, we need to change the way of thinking, we need to make sure that we're working as part of a larger picture, not just designers doing their thing. We're actually part of a world that has to coexist so that it's success for everybody. And the fourth thing that we do is positively influence the way that the UK fashion design is seen internationally. How do we do this? Well, we have a 2-year venture programme where we invest £70,000 either in cash, which is £40,000, and £30,000 in mentoring support and studio space and overheads over a 2-year period. And that's what the funding allows us to do. And we can take in 5 new designers a year, and we have 10 at any one time. So last year we interviewed 35 designers who all had been going for 4 seasons. They had a small order book, they had 2 references from key people in the fashion industry, and their turnover was somewhere between £3,000 and £5,000 a season, which is tiny. And after 2 years, the designers coming through, their turnover is somewhere between £150,000 and £270,000 per season. So the growth is quite fast, quite rapid, but at the end of that 2-year period our funding ends. So what we're finding is that if they're turning over, they have consultancy and we broker licensing deals, so that's the turnover on their collections. They could be around £1 million a year. But that's nowhere big enough for investors to actually look at them and invest in them, to move them from this early start up to a stage where they're attractive to serious investors. They need somewhere between £400,000 and £600,000 investment at that stage to bring them to a point where they've actually got the human capital infrastructure in place, where they're actually able to embrace the interest. The international interest they have is enormous. You see the newspapers full of their names, but the size of the business is tiny in comparison to the actual name and influence that they have. And there's a lot of work that's got to be done to actually identify that gap and to close it. So the 2-year venture programme is our main business. We invest in the business and we take a small stake in that business. And the new aspect is called the Pioneer Programme, where designers work with us for 1 season only. It's let's have a look at you, let's see if we can help you, what are your issues, and all of the mentoring is actually tailored to the needs of that particular business. Did you know the Centre for Fashion Enterprise is a sponsor for the Fashion Fringe competition, which picks out a winner every year? £70,000 of the £100,000 prize is given by the Centre for Fashion Enterprise. The Centre for Fashion Enterprise has been under new directorship since 2007. That is in recognition of the need to change from being privately funded to being part and part, or being totally privately funded. So we're moving towards setting up much more of an agency model, and we're bringing consultancy. The first one, I went to Turkey to advise the Turkish government on setting up incubation to underpin their developing fashion industry. We've invested £2 million in the sector over the last 5 years. That's over 40 companies, and 80% of those companies are still trading. The designers that we have, I don't know if it means anything to you or not, but names like Basso & Brook, which is now paired up with IFE, which is a big manufacturing group in Italy, moving to very secure territory there. Mario Schwab, darling of London Fashion Week last time. Manish Arora, based in India. And Erdem. They're the sort of names that are internationally renowned names who are actually part of the incubation that we run. The benefits are that they are part of the community, they're sharing their experiences, they're buyers, they take buying areas in Paris, they share rooms, the buyers come to the door, they don't just see the one, they see the 6. So the community aspect is bringing real economies of scale. The key stockists around the world, Browns, Harvey Nichols, Selfridges, Dover Street Market, then internationally Maria Luisa, opening ceremony, Barney's in New York, Side by Side in Japan, all of those stockists buy from our designers. So we know that the product is right, we know that internationally that their product is desired. The sell-through is somewhere between 65 and 80% sell-through. Aminaka Wilmot, who we've taken on most recently, has had 100% sell-through in just 6 weeks at Net-a-Porter. So we know that the elements are there, but what we don't have is the finance to actually help them scale up and fulfill their potential. I've got a list of names if anyone's interested which I could leave, and when I did put together, I'm going to hold it up as a sort of chart of where we think Centre Fashion Enterprise sits in the world of the fashion economy. I don't know if you can sort of see that here, but I've put a sort of 5-stage triangle where the bottom stage is on-off, Fashion East, they're funded by London Development Agency as well, and they actually recruit from master's courses and undergraduate courses in UK. They feed up to us here. They recommend who we should take on our pioneering programme, who really needs their hand held to actually understand what it means to set up a business, how do you register for VAT, the very, very basic fundamentals, how do you register your name, how do you make sure that you own your domain site, all of these very simple things, and also what is a cash flow. So those are the sort of things that we do. We do have previews with Saks Fifth Avenue, with Selfridges, with Harvey Nichols, where they actually want to see the designers before London Fashion Week or Paris Fashion Week. So the pioneer designers are invited to those preview days. Stage 3 is the venture programme. This is our investment programme where we have them for 2 years. Really, if we had them for 3 years, we can make a huge difference, but the funding at the moment doesn't allow that. Level 4 is the gap. If we've got designers leaving us after 2 years, we're turning over somewhere around £1 million, or the sector over 5 years beyond that might grow to 2 million. We've got a plateau, and that's how we see fashion in London right now. They can get to 1 to 2 million, and they plateau out, and they can be like that for the next 15 years. Until we get the investment, which, and the recognition, the credibility, we're not going to move them to level 5, which is the investment fund that we're currently setting up with Harold Tillman heading it up, who is the owner of Jaeger, Alders department stores. I mean, he's a long-term retailer who actually is an alumni of London College of Fashion, hence his interest in being involved in the consortium partnership. This fund will be about £5 million, so it's not huge, and it actually is to accelerate the growth over that period from the 1 to 2 million up to the sort of area that the key investors that we know are in. I mean, people like Gibo, who are bankroll Victor and Rolf, there's Escala has been bought, as you know, LVMH, PPR, TSM Capital. I mean, they're all well-known names, but they don't invest in businesses until they're up to sort of 7 or 8 million, or even up to 12. So there is this gap, and that is a problem. I think what's working in our favour is that there have been some recent investments which are beginning to pay off and are beginning to close this gap. So actually, there is an opportunity there that perhaps just needs to be recognised. Alexander McQueen, we know that he hasn't been showing a profit for some time, but hallelujah, he now is. I mean, he's turning over 12.8 million, and the profit was 541,000 this year. First profit has been shown. Now that's the process that's taken 10 years. It's only accelerated since he's had the investment from the Gucci Group. Matthew Williamson, brought by Bauder, now turning over nearly 8 million, profit 1.5. Look at the difference when he's actually got investment and actually got a company and proper business infrastructure and advice behind him. So I could go on to Stella McCartney, Margaret Hallam, there's quite a lot of names out there, but it is beginning to attract investment, and we should be using that to actually flag up what the return on investment could be and what the bigger goal and the bigger picture could look like. My question, which I'd like to sort of leave you with at the end, is how can we work together to address this investment gap, which I've called level 4, for the early stage businesses to move up into the medium stage businesses so we can accelerate their growth and make the fashion design industry in the UK a stronger and more profitable one.